Welcome to Stamps Old World UK, where we explore the most fascinating and valuable postal treasures in history. Today, we are taking a close look at one of the most famous and artistically impressive stamps ever issued by the United States Post Office, the 24-cent Declaration of Independence stamp from the historic 1869 pictorial issue, known to collectors as Scott number 120. This extraordinary issue marked a dramatic shift in American philately, being among the very first U.S. stamps to feature historical events rather than portraits of statesmen, printed in two distinct colors with a vibrant green frame surrounding a delicate violet vignette. The center image faithfully reproduces John Trumbull's iconic painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, engraved in microscopic detail by James Smiley. This miniature masterpiece astonishingly includes 42 individual figures, 6 of whom can be clearly recognized under a magnifying glass. When it comes to market value in today's dollar, the 19th century classic holds substantial value depending on its physical condition, centering, and whether it has been used. A standard used example with typical postmarks usually trades between $90 and $300 in today's market, though extremely well-centered used copies with light cancellations can easily fetch $400 to $600 or more. Unused or mint condition copies are considerably rarer. An unused stamp with original gum and a hinge mark generally sells between $1,500 and $2,500. Top-tier mint examples without faults can easily command up to $8,000 in catalog valuation. Furthermore, because this stamp required 2 passes through the printing press, a few legendary error sheets were fed upside down, creating the famous inverted center error, which can easily fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars at major auctions today. Next up, the 8-cent Dwight D. Eisenhower definitive stamp, issued by the United States Postal Service in May of 1971. This stamp was released as part of the popular Prominent American series following a first-class postage rate increase from 6 cents to 8 cents. Designed by Artist Bureau of Engraving and Printing Engravers, the stamp features a distinctive portrait of the 34th President of the United States and Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe during World War II. Printed primarily in a rich claret and maroon tone, when evaluating the market value of this iconic United States stamp in today's dollar, it is important to understand its production volume and scarcity. Because hundreds of millions of these stamps were produced to accommodate nationwide letter mail in the early 1970s, common used and mint single copies are widely available today. Standard used examples typically carry a market value of around 25 to 35 cents, while typical mint unused singles generally sell between 50 cents and $1 in today's market. Full sheets or mint plate blocks often trade between $2 and $5 depending on centering and gum condition, making this stamp an accessible and affordable piece of American presidential history for entry-level collectors. However, certain rare varieties and print errors can significantly elevate the market price of the 8-cent Eisenhower issue. Collectors actively search for specific perforation varieties, miscut sheets, and color shift errors produced by the rotary press during printing. While common copies are very affordable, rare untagged errors or extreme misperforations can command anywhere from $10 to over $50 depending on their severity and certification. Whether you are assembling a full presidential collection or looking for unique modern postal errors, the 8-cent Eisenhower stamp remains a quintessential staple of American philatelic history. Next up, the $5 John Marshall stamp. First introduced in the 1894 Bureau issues and re-released in iconic green shades through 1917, this high-denomination stamp honors John Marshall, the longest-serving Chief Justice in Supreme Court history. Because $5 was a massive sum at the turn of the 20th century, equal to nearly a week's wages for many workers. This stamp was produced in small quantities and primarily used for heavy international packages, high-value registered mail, and inter-office postal money transfers. When looking at the market value of this historic $5 green stamp in today's dollar, values range widely depending on the exact issue year, perforation, and condition. The 1917 unwatermarked issue, cataloged as Scott number 480, is the most common version, with typical used copies trading between $60 and $125 today. Unused hinged examples of the 1917 issue generally bring $250 to $400, while pristine mint never hinged specimens can command $700 to over $1,000. However, early original issues like the 1894 Scott number 263 or the 1903 Scott number 313 are exceptionally rare, with sound used copies selling for $1,500 to $3,000, and high-grade mint copies easily commanding $5,000 to $10,000 at major philatelic auctions, whether you hold a 1917 flat plate issue or an ultra-rare 1894 original. The $5 green John Marshall stamp stands as one of the most prestigious high-value classics in American postal history. Next up, the 30-cent American Buffalo stamp, first issued on March 20, 1923, as part of the famous Fourth Bureau issue, cataloged by collectors as Scott number 569. This stamp features a striking portrait of the iconic American bison set against a horizontal frame. Designed by Claire Aubrey Huston based on an original drawing by artist Charles R. Knight. This release holds a unique distinction within the series, as it is the only stamp in the entire 1922 to 1931 set that lacks a banner ribbon beneath the central vignette when evaluating the market value of the 30-cent olive brown Buffalo stamp in today's dollar. Price is primarily driven by condition, centering, and gum status. Because over 280 million of these stamps were printed, typical used examples with clear cancellations remain very accessible today, generally trading between 50 cents and $1. Mint-hinged copies without cancellations usually fetch around $10 to $20, while pristine mint never-hinged specimens with sharp centering and full original gum regularly sell for $25 to $45 in today's market. Premium condition stamps graded 90 or higher by professional grading services can easily reach upwards of $100 to $200 at specialized auctions, whether you are building a complete Fourth Bureau issue set or simply collecting classic wildlife stamps. The 1923 30-cent Buffalo stamp remains an enduring symbol of American natural history and early Bureau engraving excellence. Next up, the 15-cent orange Daniel Webster stamp from the famous banknote issues of the 1870s and 1880s. This striking definitive features a finely engraved profile bust of Daniel Webster, the legendary American statesman, lawyer, and orator who served as a U.S. Senator and twice as Secretary of State, printed in a distinctive bright orange to red-orange hue. This 15-cent denomination was primarily designed to cover foreign airmail and registered mail treaty rates, making it an essential piece of early international postal history when examining the market value of the 15-cent orange Webster stamp in today's dollar. Prices depend heavily on the issuing banknote company, paper type, presence of a grill, and condition. Common used copies from the later American banknote company printings, such as Scott number 189 or 208, typically trade between $15 and $40 in average condition, while well-centered used copies with light cancellations can easily bring $50 to $100. Earlier and scarcer printings produced by the National and Continental Bank note companies command much higher values, with sound used copies of Scott number 152 generally fetching between $200 and $400 today. Mint unused examples are extraordinarily scarce, with hinged copies regularly selling between $800 and $3,000, while pristine mint never hinged specimens with clear centering can command $5,000 or more at major philatelic auctions, whether you are building a complete set of 19th century U.S. bank note issues or simply collecting historical portrait definitives. The 15-cent orange Daniel Webster stamp stands as a true staple of classic American philately. Next up, the 30-cent orange Benjamin Franklin stamp from the iconic Washington Franklin series, issued originally in the 1910s, including Scott number 418 and Scott number 516. This stamp features a fine profile portrait of Founding Father Benjamin Franklin facing left, encircled by a traditional archway bearing U.S. postage with ornamental oak leaves at the bottom corners, printed in a striking bright orange to red-orange ink. This 30-cent denomination was primarily created to fulfill higher parcel post rates, special registration fees, and heavy international registry mail during the World War I era. When evaluating the market value of the 30-cent orange Franklin stamp in today's dollar, value depends largely on the specific issue year, watermark, perforation variety, and overall condition. Common used examples of the 1917 unwatermarked issue, cataloged as Scott number 516, generally trade between $1 and $5 for average copies, while exceptionally well-centered used examples with light, clean cancels can fetch $10 to $25. Mint unused hinged copies usually sell between $15 and $35, while pristine mint never hinged specimens with strong centering typically command $50 to $100. However, earlier flat plate printings like Scott No. 418 from 1914 are scarcer, with mint never hinged copies easily bringing $100 to $250 or more at specialized auctions. Whether you are completing a specialized Washington Franklin collection or simply admire classic early 20th century U.S. portrait definitives, the 30-cent orange Benjamin Franklin stamp remains a timeless favorite among philatelists worldwide. Next up, the 1-cent green George Washington stamp from the Washington Franklin series. First introduced in 1912, this stamp broke tradition by replacing Benjamin Franklin's portrait on the 1-cent denomination with George Washington's side profile, inspired by Jean-Antoine Houdon's famous 1785 marble bust, encircled by a laurel wreath with numerical numerals in the bottom corners. This issue was printed by the Billions in rich green ink to cover standard postcard and third-class circular rates across the United States when examining the market value of the 1-cent green Washington stamp in today's dollar, condition, paper variety, and precise physical dimensions play a huge role. Common flat plate printings, such as Scott No. 405 or Scott No. 498, were produced in immense quantities, meaning average used copies usually sell between 25 cents and $1 today. Mint unused hinged examples typically fetch around $3 to $10, while pristine mint never hinged singles sell for $15 to $25. However, serious collectors keep a very close eye out for ultra-rare experimental rotary press varieties, most notably Scott No. 544 from 1922. Featuring a specific perforation 11 setup and measuring exactly 19 by 22.5 millimeters. Authentic copies of this rare error variety are worth between $8,000 and $30,000 or more at major stamp auctions, whether you hold a common daily use workhorse or are searching for one of the rarest experimental printing errors in 20th century philately. The 1-cent green George Washington stamp remains a true cornerstone of American stamp collecting. Next up, the 3-cent violet George Washington stamp from the renowned Washington Franklin series. First issued in late 1908 and printed across multiple production runs through the early 1920s. This stamp features a prominent side profile portrait of George Washington set inside an oval frame surrounded by a laurel wreath. Printed in rich shades ranging from light violet to deep purple, this 3-cent denomination held a critical role in American postal history, particularly during World War I when first-class letter mail rates were temporarily raised from 2 cents to 3 cents to help fund the war effort. When determining the market value of the 3-cent violet Washington stamp in today's dollar, collectors must carefully check for paper watermarks, perforation measurements, printing methods, and physical condition. Common flat plate and rotary press printings, such as Scott No. 501 or Scott No. 529, were issued by the hundreds of millions, so average used copies generally trade for 25 cents to $2 today. Fine mint unused hinged copies typically sell for $5 to $15, while well-centered mint never hinged singles bring around $20 to $40 in current market listings. However, rare production variations command extraordinary prices. Most notably, the 1909 experimental bluish paper printing cataloged as Scott No. 359, which can easily fetch $3,000 to over $10,000 at major philatelic auctions, whether you have a standard wartime letter stamp or a rare experimental printing. The 3-cent violet George Washington stamp remains an iconic piece of early United States postal heritage. Next up, the $1 black Western cattle in storm stamp from the iconic 1898 Trans-Mississippi Exposition issue, cataloged as Scott No. 292. The central vignette depicts a majestic bull guarding his herd amidst a raging snowstorm on the American western frontier, based on a painting by Scottish artist John McWhirter. Originally planned as a 2-color stamp, the threat of the Spanish-American War forced the Bureau of Engraving and Printing to print it in a dramatic, single-color black shade. which paradoxically highlighted the breathtaking depth and detail of the engraving when examining the market value of the $1 Western cattle in storm stamp in today's dollar. It stands as a true heavyweight investment piece in American philately. Because face value was so high in 1898, only around 56,000 copies were ever sold, making it exceptionally scarce in all grades. In today's market, a sound used copy with a clean postmark typically sells between $600 and $1,200 depending on centering and margins. Unused or hinged mint copies generally command $1,500 to $3,000, while a pristine, high-grade mint never hinged example with well-balanced margins can easily fetch $4,000 to over $10,000 at major philatelic auctions, whether featured as the ultimate crown jewel of a classic collection or admired purely for its unrivaled artistic engraving. The $1 Trans-Mississippi cattle stamp remains an absolute legend in world philately. Next up, the 1-cent green Benjamin Franklin stamp from the famous Second Bureau series of 1902, cataloged by collectors as Scott No. 300. Released in early 1903, this elaborate Beaux Arts style design features a portrait of founding father Benjamin Franklin, framed by intricate architectural arches and two allegorical child figures holding electric light bulbs to honor Franklin's pioneering scientific achievements. This release was also historical because it was the first regular U.S. definitive stamp to explicitly feature the subject's birth and death years printed directly on the design. When evaluating the market value of the 1900 to Series 1 cent Franklin stamp in today's dollar, prices depend primarily on gum status, centering, and overall condition. Because over 11 billion copies were printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing to cover standard postcard and circular rates, common used copies with typical postmarks generally sell between 10 cents and 50 cents today. Unused hinged examples with original gum usually fetch $3 to $5, while pristine, unhinged mint copies with strong centering regularly command $15 to $25. High-grade certified specimens scoring 90 or higher, as well as imperforate varieties, coil press errors, or rare plate block combinations, can easily reach upward of $100 to several $100s at specialized auctions, whether you appreciate its lush Beaux Arts style engraving or collect early 20th century U.S. postal history. The 1900 to 1 cent Benjamin Franklin issue remains a timeless, accessible classic for collectors everywhere. Next up, the 10-cent green George Washington stamp from the issue of 1855 to 1857, cataloged by collectors under Scott numbers 14, 15, and 35. Engraved and printed by Patton, Carpenter, Casselier and Company. This imperforate classic features a portrait of George Washington surrounded by a semicircle of 13 star accents and ornate corner scrollwork with Roman numerals X in the upper corners. Designed primarily to cover the 10-cent postal rate for single letters sent over 3,000 miles within the United States, including coast-to-coast mail sent to California. This stamp was pivotal in connecting the expanding American Republic when evaluating the market value of the 10-cent green Washington stamp in today's dollar. Value depends significantly on whether the stamp is imperforate or perforated, its exact type, design, for margins, and physical condition. A used imperforate copy from 1855, such as Scott number 14 or 15, generally sells between $150 and $400 for average examples, while nicely centered used copies with 4 clear margins and light cancellations regularly fetch $600 to $1,000. Unused or mint examples are much scarcer. A fine unused imperforate single usually commands $1,500 to $3,000, with pristine, certified original gum specimens bringing over $5,000 to $10,000 at major philatelic auctions. Perforated varieties from 1857, cataloged as Scott number 35, typically trade between $50 and $200 for used copies, depending on perforation quality and centering, whether you hold a classic imperforate margins copy or a scarce perforated variety. The 10-cent green George Washington stamp remains an indispensable icon of 19th century American postal heritage. Next up, the 4-cent Abraham Lincoln stamp from the prominent American series, cataloged by collectors as Scott number 1036, issued by the United States Post Office on November 17, 1965, in Springfield, Illinois. This stamp was designed by artist Bill Hyde. It features a striking black and white profile portrait of the 16th President of the United States set against a rustic background of log cabin walls, symbolizing Lincoln's humble beginnings and journey to leadership during the American Civil War. When evaluating the market value of the 4-cent Lincoln stamp in today's dollar, its immense production volume means that everyday copies are very common and highly accessible. Millions of these stamps were issued to pay postcard and domestic airmail supplementary rates in the late 1960s. Standard used copies with typical postmarks carry a market value of around 10 to 20 cents today, while mint unused singles generally sell for 25 cents to 50 cents. Mint plate blocks and full sheets usually trade between $1 and $3 depending on condition. However, specialized error collectors actively hunt for rare printing anomalies, such as severe misperforations, color smudges, or untagged varieties, which can command $15 to $50 or more among dedicated enthusiasts. Whether you are completing a set of the iconic Prominent Americans issue or simply appreciate historical presidential portraiture, the 4-cent Abraham Lincoln stamp remains a classic piece of mid-century U.S. postal history. Next up, the 3-cent Rose George Washington stamp from the 1861 pictorial and Civil War era issues, cataloged by collectors under Scott numbers 65 and 88, issued by the United States Post Office during the height of the American Civil War. This stamp was produced by the National Bank Note Company to replace all previous postal issues, preventing the Confederate States from using old stocks of U.S. stamps, featuring a profile bust of George Washington after the famous sculpture by Jean-Antoine Houdon, set against an intricate geometric lathywork background. This 3-cent denomination served as the primary workhorse rate for standard letter mail sent across the nation. When evaluating the market value of the 3-cent Rose Washington stamp in today's dollar, collectors must check whether the stamp is a standard issue or features an embossed grill, as well as its overall condition and centering. Common ungrilled copies, cataloged as Scott number 65, were printed in huge quantities, meaning average used examples typically trade between $2 and $5 today, while extremely well-centered used copies with light cancellations fetch $15 to $30. Mint unused examples with original gum generally sell between $40 and $80, while pristine mint never hinged specimens can command $150 to $300. However, copies featuring embossed grills, such as the Scarsa grill or B-grill experimental varieties from 1867, are exceptionally rare and can easily command several $1,000s to over tens of thousands of dollars at major philatelic auctions. Whether you hold a common Civil War letter stamp or a rare grilled printing variation, the 3-cent Rose George Washington stamp remains an essential cornerstone of classic 19th century American philately. Next up, the 10-cent Black George Washington stamp from the United States first issue of 1847, cataloged by collectors as Scott number 2, engraved and printed in New York by Rawdon, Wright, Hatch, and Edson. This imperforate classic was issued alongside the 5-cent Benjamin Franklin to establish America's very first federally issued postage stamps, featuring a magnificent engraving of George Washington after the famous portrait by Gilbert Stuart. This 10-cent denomination was specifically designated for letters traveling over 300 miles, paying the rate for heavy correspondence and long-distance deliveries across the nation. When evaluating the market value of the 1847 10-cent Black Washington stamp in today's dollar, it stands as one of the most highly sought-after classics in all of philately, because only around 865,000 copies were printed before being demonetized in 1851. Sound, authentic examples command high value regardless of condition. In today's market, an average used copy with sound margins and typical cancels generally sells between $600 and $1,500, while exceptional used examples with wide, full margins and light pen or hand stamp cancellations regularly fetch $2,500 to $5,000. Unused or mint copies are extraordinarily rare, with hinged examples commanding $8,000 to $15,000, while pristine, high-grade mint copies with original gum can easily top $30,000 to over $50,000 at major international auctions. Whether featured as the ultimate holy grail of a 19th century United States collection or admired as a pioneer of global postal history, The 1847 10-cent black George Washington stamp remains an enduring symbol of early American philatelic prestige. Next up, the 12-cent black George Washington stamp from the issue of 1851, cataloged by collectors as Scott No. 17. Issued on July 1, 1851, and engraved by Patton, Carpenter, Casselier and Company, this imperforate classic was the highest denomination in the entire issue, featuring a portrait of George Washington based on the famous painting by Gilbert Stuart surrounded by an intricate oval frame. This 12-cent stamp was created not for ordinary single letters, but to pay heavy domestic packet mail and international rates, most notably used in pairs to cover the 24-cent treaty rate to Great Britain. When evaluating the market value of the 1851 12-cent black Washington stamp in today's dollar, physical condition and margin clearance are key factors. Because imperforate stamps were cut manually from sheets using scissors, copies with 4 full, clear margins without touching the frame lines are far more valuable. An average used single with tight margins typically sells between $150 and $350 today, while exceptionally centered used copies with 4 wide margins and light postmarks regularly fetch $600 to $900. Unused or mint-hinged examples are significantly scarcer, generally bringing $1,500 to $3,000, while pristine mint never hinged specimens with original gum can command $4,500 to over $7,000 at major philatelic auctions, whether saved on cover as a historic, transatlantic postal document or appreciated as a standalone classic. The 1851 12-cent black George Washington stamp remains an essential trophy for collectors of early American philately. Next up, the 10-cent blue bicycle messenger special delivery stamp from the series of 1902, cataloged by collectors as Scott No. E6, released in December 1902 to replace the earlier running messenger design. This stamp features a vivid engraving of a postal messenger riding a bicycle to speed mail delivery. The artwork reflects the rapidly modernizing turn of the century post office, highlighting the inscription "Secures immediate delivery at any United States post office," set within an ornate scrollwork frame. When evaluating the market value of the 1902 bicycle messenger stamp in today's dollar, values depend significantly on centering, gum condition, and whether the stamp is used or unused. Standard used copies with typical cancels are relatively accessible today, generally trading between $10 and $25 for average examples, while exceptionally well-centered used copies with light postmarks can bring $30 to $60. Unused hinged examples with original gum usually sell between $40 and $80, while pristine mint never hinged specimens with sharp centering and full original gum regularly command $150 to $250. High-grade certified copies scoring 90 or above can easily reach $400 to $600 or more at specialized auctions. Whether you are completing a dedicated U.S. special delivery collection or simply appreciate classic transportation-themed postal engravings, the 1902 bicycle messenger stamp remains an enduring favorite among collectors worldwide. Next up, the 3-cent Red Pony Express 80th anniversary stamp, cataloged by collectors as Scott No. 894, issued by the United States Post Office on April 3, 1940, in Sacramento, California, and St. Joseph, Missouri. This stamp commemorates the historic founding of the legendary Overland Mail Service in 1860. Designed by William K. Schrage, the vibrant red engraving depicts a Pony Express rider galloping away from a relay station on horseback, with Western motifs in the upper corners, including a steer skull on the left and a wheat sheaf on the right. When evaluating the market value of the 3-cent Pony Express commemorative stamp in today's dollar, its production volume keeps everyday copies very affordable for collectors. Printed in massive quantities exceeding 46 million copies to satisfy nationwide collector interest, standard used copies with typical postmarks generally carry a market value of around 15 cents to 25 cents today. Mint unused single copies typically sell for 25 cents to 50 cents in current market listings. Mint plate blocks and original post office sheets generally trade between $1 and $3 depending on overall gum condition and centering. However, specialized collectors actively hunt for first-day covers bearing historic postmarks from Sacramento or St. Joseph, as well as minor printing varieties, which can fetch between $2 and $15, whether you are building a collection focused on American Western heritage, horse topical stamps, or iconic mid-century U.S. commemoratives. The 1943 cent Pony Express stamp remains a classic and accessible favorite. Next up, the 3-cent purple General George S. Patton JRB stamp, cataloged by collectors as Scott number 986, issued by the United States Post Office on November 11, 1953, in Fort Knox, Kentucky. This stamp pays tribute to General Patton and the armored forces of the United States Army, printed in a deep purple shade. The design features a prominent portrait of General Patton wearing his 4-star overseas cap, set against a battlefield scene with advancing M47 Patton tanks in the background, symbolizing American military strength and tactical leadership during World War II. When evaluating the market value of the 3-cent Patton commemorative stamp in today's dollar, massive production quantities keep standard copies very affordable and highly accessible. Issued in quantities exceeding 110 million to satisfy widespread public demand, everyday used copies with typical postmarks carry a market value of around 15 cents to 25 cents today. Mint unused single copies generally sell for 25 cents to 50 cents in current market listings. Mint plate blocks and full post office sheets usually trade between $1 and $3 depending on condition. However, specialized collectors actively seek out first-day covers postmarked at Fort Knox on Armistice Day 1953, as well as distinct misperforation errors or color shifts, which can command anywhere from $2 to $20 or more, whether you are assembling a military-themed collection, honoring World War II history, or collecting classic mid-century American commemoratives. The 1953 3-cent General Patton stamp remains an essential and patriotic piece of postal heritage. Next up, the 5-cent brown Benjamin Franklin stamp from the United States first issue of 1847, cataloged by collectors as Scott number 1. Engraved and printed in New York by Rawdon, Wright, Hatch, and Edson, this imperforate classic was released on July 1, 1847, marking the dawn of federally issued postage stamps in America. Featuring a portrait of Benjamin Franklin after the famous painting by Joseph Sifford Duplessis. This 5-cent denomination was primarily issued to pay the domestic rate for a single letter traveling under 300 miles across the rapidly growing country. When evaluating the market value of the 1847 5-cent brown Franklin stamp in today's dollar, condition, margin width, and clarity of postmark dictate its tremendous collector value. In today's market, an average used copy with tight margins and standard postmarks typically trades between $250 and $500, while exceptional used examples featuring for wide, clear margins and light cancellations regularly fetch $1,000 to $2,500. Unused or mint copies are extraordinarily scarce. An unused example with hinges generally commands $3,000 to $8,000, while pristine mint specimens featuring original gum can easily command $15,000 to over $30,000 at major philatelic auctions, whether saved as an incredible piece of early postal history or coveted as the literal number 1 entry in American stamp collecting. The 1847 5-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp remains an undisputed titan of global philately. Next up, the 5-cent brown Thomas Jefferson stamp from the issue of 1856 to 1861, cataloged by collectors under Scott numbers 12, 28, and 34. Engraved by Patton, Carpenter and Company. This stamp features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States and primary author of the Declaration of Independence, based on a famous Gilbert Stuart painting, printed in various shades ranging from red-brown to dark chocolate brown. This 5-cent issue was created primarily to pay foreign mail treaty rates, particularly to France, Great Britain, and South America, making it a critical component of classic transatlantic mail. When evaluating the market value of the 5-cent Jefferson stamp in today's dollar, collectors carefully consider whether it is imperforate or perforated, as well as design type variations regarding its ornate corner projections. The early imperforate version, cataloged as Scott number 12, is quite scarce, with sound used copies typically selling between $500 and $1,200 today. while fine mint examples can command $3,000 to $6,000. The more common perforated varieties from 1857, such as Scott No. 34, generally trade between $50 and $150 for average used copies, while nicely centered used specimens with light cancellations fetch $200 to $400. Unused perforated singles with original gum usually sell for $500 to $1,500, with exceptional high-grade mint copies commanding upwards of $3,000 at major philatelic auctions, whether saved on a historic, foreign treaty cover or treasured as a standalone 19th century classic. The 5-cent Brown Thomas Jefferson stamp remains a proud highlight of American philately. Thank you for watching this episode on Stamps Old World UK. If you enjoyed this detailed breakdown of history and market values, please click the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts or questions, and subscribe to the channel for more featured videos on rare stamps from around the world.